Well, good morning. It's a lovely morning here in the middle of October 2025. We're in Queen's Park Cemetery overlooking Section W, and we're about to meet two of the most wonderful people that have been involved in the cemetery project for Alberta Family Histories Society.
I will share a little bit about the cemetery projects that started in 1980. And the first leader, her name was Janet Morgan. And she had a very loyal, strong, talented assistant, Judy Wemple. And these two ladies asked for volunteers and wanted to start transcribing and documenting cemeteries in Southern Alberta. They felt, the leaders at that time felt working on a smaller location and in a smaller community, we could evolve and develop some of our skills, and that the recording would reflect that.
And for our audience, this is before we had Find a Grave, before we had Billion Graves, before we had the websites and even the internet. This is real old-fashioned detective work.
It really was. And I've had many chuckles in the last few days as I review my memories and the people that I worked with. The greatest asset, starting with the rural communities and the small, unique cemeteries that were located there, was the humanity that you witnessed. You created a bond with your other AFHS volunteers. You got to meet them. It often started off with many volunteers taking their truck camper and staying the entire weekend. And so by the time you left Calgary, which would be 7-ish in the morning, and you would arrive at a rural setting, somewhere 9-ish, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you'd have your first little coffee break and get organized and walk around that unique, dedicated space for a cemetery. And we had been coached on how to use a form or a template such as this, in which you were directed on certain areas to fill out. And it was mandatory that you use a pencil because mistakes happen, and our project leader at the time did not like ballpoint pen smearing and leaking and you trying to cross it out, etc. That was very disruptive in her world. And so we all had to use pencils. Many of us had a 3-legged stool that we took because you would be perched for a wee while.
Good idea.
In front of these markers. And you literally copied everything down. And it was amazing to each of us volunteers how many times you would document or write down the surname, such as McDougall, some of the European names, and you wrote it as your memory thought that should be. And then as you double checked your work, you realized that it was an MC Dougal and not a Mac Dougal. And so just simple little errors like that, that we laughed at. We would take coffee breaks. So you would work roughly 9:30 till noon, then have your picnic lunch and acquaint yourself with your fellow coworkers, and back to work again till about 4 in the afternoon. And those that were staying over, they sometimes went back for an evening session. But the rest of us would drive home as we carpooled. And the friendships that were made, the historical evidence that you witnessed on those markers. And again, in that day, there was a biblical scripture inscribed at the bottom of each marker. Most markers were single names on them, not dual or multi like you will see in more recent times. The markers often were very humble. They could be twigs put together in the shape of a cross with binder twine holding them in the center, or a little bit of metal type string, if that's useful. And it just made you appreciate the humanity that you were witnessing, the struggles that so many of these people met. The locals often saw the cars, and so they would venture onto the cemetery and inquire what we were doing. It permitted a time to share with them what our project was about. And that relationship has remained over the years with these smaller communities.
Now I'm curious, in starting it up, what was the idea? Was it based on societies, genealogy societies over in England, for example, that would visit cemeteries and those things, would be the American? What was the concept of almost an obligation to record cemetery records? What was the society striving to do then?
I believe Janet felt it was important to document the residents of our past. I also think Janet was aware of many genealogical societies in Eastern Canada, and they too had documented their very sparse cemeteries in a well-lived or populated province. And Alberta being much more prairie unique style, our cemeteries were very tiny, and the rural ones were definitely not really organized in a way of a row, such as what many of us are familiar with when you come to our larger urban centers.
Did you start off with photographing in the beginning?
Absolutely not. It was all paper written down. The second phase, after all our templates had been completed, we handed them back to Janet, who then approached Jerry Riddell, which is the son of Bob and Judy Riddell, and he asked typists to document this onto a computer spreadsheet, and our computers were very basic, if that's a term I can use, back in those days, and not all of the volunteers had a personal computer. So sometimes you went to the AFHS library and started a spreadsheet and carried on from there, or you worked from your own home if you had a computer. That spreadsheet then was proofread by another group of volunteers and then given to Jerry Riddell, and he placed all of that information in spreadsheet format on a CD such as this. And this CD, which was the first effort, digital effort made by the AFHS Society, so you can see we were all newcomers to early technology. And there are over 60 cemeteries recorded from Southern Alberta, that's going north and south and east and west.
And this was in what year? Was this one?
You're asking me
Should
what
say it on the
year.
back, I think, shouldn't it? About 2000?
68,000 records from over 70 cemeteries.
Do we have a year on here?
I don't
somewhere?
think it does.
So it
but
would have been what, maybe about 2000 or so?
I think this CD came out in the 1990s.
Okay, good.
Tell me about building up a relationship with the City of Calgary Cemetery Division.
That's
That really was a gem. We had two people working on that, Linda Alderman and Judy Riddell. Linda Alderman did the bulk of meeting with the city officials and persuading them that this was a valuable resource and that our purpose was historic recording and genealogical orientation, and that we would respectfully adhere to any rules that were presented by the City of Calgary. And it was a go from day one. I think it took 6-7 meetings with the dignitaries of the city, and they really did welcome us. In those days, as digital cameras had just started, so many volunteers scrapped the laborious recording on a paper, and we relied on the digital photographs that we had. We soon learned a lesson. I don't think it took 2 to 3 years, because the progress that was made with digitalization in the 1990s was going in leaps and bounds. And so we had to redo our first initial efforts, because I think it's called pixels, or the pixelation,
Yes.
was just pretty raw, blurry. It really didn't give you a lot of detail.
How did you get started in it? Because now I'm going to get into how do you get so many volunteers to help out? Who drew you in and what inspired you to do it?
Well, I joined the AFHS out of genealogy interest, and they were always calling for volunteers for whatever. I felt I still had a bit of time commitment to a career and to aging parents, so I could not see myself taking leadership roles. But I linked up with Judy partly because I could pick her up and drive her to the meetings, and because we lived in the northwest quadrant of the city, and because I love outdoors. I love nature. I've been fascinated with cemetery information and how it competes once genealogy researches. So that's where I started.
Okay, your turn, Wendy. How did you get started on all this?
You can credit Heather for that. Once I quit working, I've always been interested in genealogy. I did many family trees for myself and people who I was related to or were neighbors or coworkers or whatever. When I retired, I thought, okay, finally, I have the time now to come to the AFHS meetings. And I think it was at the first or second meeting I came to, Heather stood up to give her projects report. And among other things, she said she could use some extra help with proofreading the spreadsheets that had been prepared for the cemeteries. And I thought, I can do that. And so
more.
it turned into a lot more. But
Turned
yes,
into a beautiful friendship.
it did. It definitely did. And so I started out proofreading spreadsheets, and then graduated to proofreading spreadsheets and coming along and getting photos and all of that, and to eventually taking over a few cemeteries on my own. And but I could never fill your shoes, Heather, because I only do cemeteries. That's a full-time job. You had multiple other projects as well. You did the Returning Soldiers project, and what others can you think of?
I forget them.
Yeah.
They were
There
just
were so many.
they were
so
just so
many.
enjoyable at the time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say more on the background of the cemeteries projects, in the sense that It started in 1980, and we're now 2025, and we've had 4 amazing leaders, which is Janet Morgan, and quickly ill health took her, and Judy Riddell, pardon me, took the shoes. And then I followed Judy, and now Wendy, and I'm thinking over a 45-year time span to have
What an inspiration.
to have attracted over that time period a multitude of wonderful friendships, genealogical sharing, progression from basic tools to now just relying on cameras that cell phone cameras. It is quite an art, and it is quite a fascination.
That leads to my next request, Wendy. What does it take to organize a field trip?
Oh.
Where to start?
Yes.
Well, you're subject to the vagaries of Alberta weather, which is always a challenge. You need to plan ahead a bit and give people a choice of days maybe, and see how many can make it on a certain day, pick their day sort of. And then once we've got whatever day works for the majority, we cross our fingers that the weather's going to cooperate for that day. And then we organize carpooling.
Yes.
And
Still.
hopefully I've been able to contact the town or village or whatever to tell them that we're coming, and see if there's any resources they can offer us, and usually promise to send them our photos in return or whatever. And it works out really well. And this year, with all the rain earlier in the summer, we had to postpone I don't know how many times because Calgary weather was crazy. But we're enjoying a nice long fall right now, and so the road
Fall
trips have
colors
happened.
do add
And
to.
fall colors are gorgeous, except you have to take your brooms to sweep all the leaves off the markers.
The other value of what amazing volunteers have done on recording cemeteries is that many of the locations lost their records. Fire took many of the more basic offices that were wood construction. Some communities appeared and had a lifetime of 10, 12 years, and then it folded because the careers and climatic conditions, etc., moved people to another area. So not all of the records followed. So the fact that we were very basic in the beginning, and of course then following up with a graphic image, and all of these centers where the cemeteries are located have valued from being given a copy of our work. And it has brought immense satisfaction. Many of the smaller communities' libraries have requested a copy, and AFHS gave them a copy. Yes, in the past we sold some of our CDs and DVDs. It was a way of keeping some funds coming into the organization. Never a profit, but again, to know that volunteering has produced some beautiful records that can be used by so many people.
True enough.
It really is an asset, and something that was so appreciated. And in return, the volunteers were treated so respectfully, and the friendliness that you met. It didn't matter whether it was rural or urban.
Mm-hmm.
And the family members that you meet and how congenial they are. You're made to feel somewhat special.
They're pleased that we're taking an interest in their history.
Absolutely.
And we had a success story last year, which I'm very happy about. We had been down to Granham, south of Calgary,
Of course.
and done their cemetery. And I had learned that the community had originally been called Leavings. So I looked for death registrations for Leavings and found some and passed them on to them. And that prompted them to dig in their own records
Wow.
and find the original Granham Cemetery, which was called the Leaving Cemetery.
Of course.
And
wow. Detective work.
they figured out from their local history book and other records where it was located. And they're in the process of getting a plaque made with the names of the people buried there, and it will be erected on the site, and it is the Leavings Cemetery. And so that's just a wonderful example of cooperation
Yes.
between locals and
Yes.
AFHS that resulted in something that wasn't known before.
Yes, it truly is.
This is part 1 of 2 of the cemetery project. Next, we are going to visit the Queen's Park Mausoleum and have a discussion of the Alberta Ancestors Cemetery website in part 2 of 2.